Dear guests, thank you for being with us today. For the first GNF session of the day, we offer you a session organized by the new established Saudi Space Agency. This panel is called Science on SSA-HSF1 mission and is exploring the experiments and impact. This panel will include scientists, astronauts directly involved in this mission to discuss experiments from the perspectives of the primary investigations, astronauts executions, and student outreach. But I would like now to give a warm welcome to Dr. Balata Munsami, the Deputy CEO of SSA and moderator of this session. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning everyone, and it's indeed a pleasure to be here and moderate this global networking forum. And as indicated, the topic is on the Saudi Space Agency Human Spaceflight 1 mission. I think we'll be digging deeper into the experiments that were conducted and what impact that has had. Just a few fun facts before we kick off. Something you might not know. The first Arab astronaut or space, Arab in space, is Prince Sultan bin Salman. And that happened on the NASA Discovery Shuttle on June 17, 1985. So that was a while back. We also had the first 2 Arab astronauts on the International Space Station at the same time earlier this year. And we have Astro Ali with us. Unfortunately, Astro Rayana is actually in Japan doing an outreach mission. And talking about Astro Rayana, she's also the first Arab female astronaut to the ISS. So those 3 groundbreaking facts. Before I kick off, unfortunately, one of our principal investigators on the experiments, particularly on cloud seeding experiments, was not able to make it today. So we just want to roll a video in terms of his contribution before we kick off.
I'm Ashraf Rahat from the King Fahd University in Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to introduce the cloud seeding chamber experiment that was launched to the International Space Station by the Saudi Space Agency last May. This experiment is a collaboration between the King Fahd University in Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Space Agency, NanoRack, United States, and the experiment was conducted by 2 Saudi astronauts, Aliyev and Rihanna Bernawi. As you know, that the cloud seeding that we do on Earth is just the spraying of silver iodide salt in the atmosphere to increase the condensation of the water vapor and to increase the chances for precipitation. So the idea of our experiment is we do the same thing, but under the microgravity conditions. And this is the experiment that was designed by us and launched through the ISS last May. So as you can see, we have here 4 chambers. We have 2 control chambers and 2 experimental or test chambers. In the control chambers, we do not spray the silver iodide, so there's no condensation is supposed to happen here. And the experimental chamber, we spray the silver iodide, so we observe some condensation. And now you can see the experiment has some cameras and a water chamber to introduce the water vapor into the chamber. The cameras also will spot the condensation on the on the experimental chamber. We use some kind of glass, which is called the somo glass, that is transparent, and it also does not allow the water vapor to condense on the glass, but it condenses on the salt. The experiment has been launched, and we had some interesting results that we will be sharing with the scientific community very soon, as we have observed that the cloud seeding could happen under the microgravity conditions. So this is just a nutshell of our experiment, and we will share more results with the scientific community very, very soon. And thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. We also have a video that we collated of the kind of, just give you a sense of the mission itself, end to end. So can we play that video as well? It's about 2 minutes, I think.
هي أهم ميزة بالنسبة لدى السعودية هي الطاقة الشبابية اللي فيها، والميزة الجيدة أنهم شباب واعي قوي، لديه طموح رائع، مثقف، متعلم بشكل جيد، مبدع، لديه قيم عالية، باقي فقط أن نضع الرؤية ونعمل عليها. تحت برق عزنا لا من دعانا يبشر بعزه ولا عنه تثنى، لا صدح صوت الوطن جاوب صدانا مزنة رعادها دندن وغنى، تحت برق عزنا لا من دعانا. السلام عليكم من الفضاء. شكرا سيدي خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك سلمان بن عبد العزيز صاحب الرؤية ولي عهدنا محمد بن سلمان على دعمه لهذه المهمة والتمكين والثقة فينا كشباب طموحين.
هذه الأبحاث كلها بنجاح الحمد لله.
إن شاء الله نسأل الله أن تعود علينا بالنفع في المستقبل.
Okay, thank you. As you can see, it was a very successful mission, but also a very proud one for Saudi Arabia and for the world as well. I'm going to start off with Dr. Badr Shira. He's from the Nebula Research and Development Company, and his main focus was on, he conducted 6 experiments, primarily on the nervous system. So, Dr. Shira, can you describe the experiments that you conducted on this mission and explain why you chose them, and then also look at some of the results and how that contributes to our understanding.
Thank you so much for your introduction, and it's really my honor and pleasure to be here with you today. The experiments we conducted involved examining the brain and nervous system in space in a way that was never done before, using novel tools and looking at the brain from the big structure level up to the molecular level. The experiments involved looking at the brain structure and blood flow using functional near-infrared spectroscopy, which is a device sent for the first time to space. Another experiment involved looking at the brain electrical activity using portable EEG system that is flown for the first time to space. Also, we sent another novel tool, which is the automated pupillometer, that is examining the pupils of the eye and providing the characteristics of pupillary light reflex in microgravity, and it's also flown for the first time. And we correlated that with a well-known methodology used in space for a long time, which is the optic nerve ultrasound. We also examined the biomarkers obtained from looked at in biological samples obtained from astronauts. The experiments involved collecting data and samples before flight, so to have a baseline before exposure to microgravity. And then the second part is done in microgravity to see the effects of space flight and effect of microgravity and radiation. And the third part is done post-flight to document recovery and return to baseline. So this is an overview of the experiments. Now these experiments actually provide novel data and novel information about the effects of space travel on the human brain, which is essential if humans want to survive on the moon, Mars, and beyond. And it's essential for long-term human presence in space. So these experiments are novel and unique in that aspect. The results are still under processing, but from the preliminary result, I can tell you that all devices are showing important data that is provided for the first time to the world. And once we publish this data, that will be a scientific contribution on which future research is built upon.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm then going to turn to two of my panelists. Dr. Khalid Abu Khabar from the King Faisal Specialist Hospital, and then the co-investigator, Dr. Wijdan Al-Ahmadi, immediately after that. But Dr. Khabar, as a principal investigator, so what is the model and scope of research that you used and that was to perform this particular mission? So your focus was mainly around the cell science experiments, and you had about 4 of those experiments on board. So, yeah.
Okay, well, first, thank you very much for inviting me here. So the model is very interesting because we spent months just thinking about what would be the model. And I remember that the Saudi Space Agency were a kind of impatient with me because I took long, because I keep changing it. I think it's very important to think about the model because it's not like the lab, you're going to come back and forth, and then you can repeat things. No, this is very far away. You cannot just do things as you would do in the grounds. So it's leukemic blood cells. We send it over there, leukemic blood cells. I call it a disease in a dish because it's really a reflection of inflammation response, cancer, and as a matter of fact, as general response to basically any stimulus that you would find. This is from our own program that we originated in Riyadh. We knew so much about this platform, and we're looking at the effects of microgravity, obviously, and overall the ISS environment, and how these leukemic monocytes behave in response to a stimulus. The stimulus itself is interesting. It's actually a microbial product. Obviously, we cannot send the microbes because we don't want to infect Ali and Rayyan and the other. So we send an inert microbial product. It's a part actually of E. coli. Actually, a part of the cell wall. The membrane of E. coli, which is a bacteria, common bacteria. It should induce inflammation. But interestingly, at the same time, they should also induce growth factors that play exactly the same roles in cancer. So we're going to understand both. So this is actually the model. And the experiments, they say there are 4 experiments, but actually there are more than 4 experiments. We're looking at the time response and how it is different from the ground, compared to the ground. We're looking at for the first time, we're going to actually measured the mRNA half-life. This means how the RNA is existing and living in a way in space. And then in the same model, we're actually looking to response to therapy, because obviously we want to know what would happen in future in human health about the response to therapy. Is it going to be improved or is it not going to be improved? And if it's improved, it can be very helpful. If not, you have to have ways of mitigating them. All this from cells, simply cells, monocytic cell lines. We can understand. Now remember, this is a discovery stage. It doesn't mean that tomorrow you're going to apply it to humans. No, this is just a step towards understanding and designing the future experiments, if you like, especially in the longer flights, because that's where things are. I don't want to really take too much because I think Wijdan is going to talk about the difficult part that she went through, okay, which is the integration and validation. Thank you.
Before I jump to Dr. Wijdan, so just to give a sense to the audience, there were a set of experiments being done, one on microgravity, and there was a reference one done by Dr. Wijdan on the ground. So what was your role as a principal investigator?
Okay, the role of the principal investigator would be really, I mean, overall expression and, overall, I say expression because I use gene expression all the time with my experiments. It's actually the overall supervision from the concept to the end. Most importantly, also the analysis and the post-analysis, which is actually being carried right now. And as a matter of fact, I received the first data just about 2 weeks ago at 11 o'clock at night. And then I could have just simply waited until we then look at it next morning and the other colleagues in the teams who look at it. But no, actually at 11 o'clock, I start analyzing them until 2 o'clock in the morning. And it tells you how much excitement there is there. And I can see already from my own point of view, at least from my own experience, there are changes already happening at that level of the molecular cellular level. So you can see the principal investigator role is a nervous role. So I have to be in almost every step, and deal with all these aspects.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Wijdan, you were the co-investigator. Can you maybe elaborate on your role and any challenges you faced on the ground?
Well, of course, there was so many challenges during this mission, like preparing for the project. First of all, I worked closely with Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid, he was my teacher and my mentor for the past 20 years. We worked together in so many projects and we had lots of publications together. So when we first received the call for a proposal to be done in the space, we sat together, we created a plan, we divided the roles. Dr. Khalid had an idea. So he told me, we had 4 ideas. So these are the ideas. Can you write an experimental plan that can cover them? So I was so excited in a way that I wrote 13 experimental plan proposals. And then we showed it to Axiom and Saudi Space Agency. And we had to select 4 experiments out of these 13. The simplest experiment because the other ones were a bit more complicated. That was my role. So we planned the experiment. We did the first experiments back in Riyadh just to make sure that this experiment is working well or everything is we know that it worked. And then I had to go to the state to implement the experiment, to convert it to a platform that adapts to the microgravity. So the challenges, of course, there was a lot, because studying inflammation at different time points in microgravity, you have to consider the astronaut time, the equipment which were available in the International Space Station. We had to do lots of modification. But thank God it went well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wijdan. I'm going to turn attention to Astro Ali. So it was your hands and Astro Rayana actually conducting the experiment. So maybe walk us through in terms of what is your role, personal experiences or challenges that you faced, and what is the kind of the training involved so you can prepare yourself for these experiments.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bala, and I would like to thank everybody here for your participation. Ryan and we trained for about 10 months for this mission. We worked closely with the PIs to make sure we understand the experiment and how we are going to implement the training we had and work with the tools that are aboard the International Space Station. The training itself was very interesting because we had to train in different parts Firstly, training on the space vehicle itself and how to live inside Dragon when we are orbiting free flight space until we reach the International Space Station, and how to learn what to do inside it and how to mitigate any emergency or situation that could happen, God forbidden. And also training on the International Space Station, which is a bigger vehicle orbiting the Earth, and also learning the equipment are inside it and the hardware and software that we're going to be interacting with. And also very, very critical part of the training is focusing on teamwork and time management and how you're going to manage your time between experiment and doing other outreach events, and also working hand to hand with the other astronauts on board the International Space Station. The main part of our mission was to conduct a scientific experiment on the International Space Station. So Ryan and I, our role came to safely operate the hardware on board the ISS, and also work closely with the scientists on Earth to make sure we have a safe and we have a safe execution for the experiment, and we can relay the data we had back down to Earth so they can analyze what we did. For our time on board the ISS, we worked closely with the crew on board. So we worked with the remaining crew from Expedition 68, 2 cosmonauts and Frank. And also we worked closely with Expedition 69, who made sure that we had the best of our time and to conduct safely and to understand and to utilize everything we had on board the ISS. So I still remember the first experiment I had to do, which was not included in the training, which is drinking a water bottle in Dragon and trying to centrifuge the water to go to the other side so I can drink it. So everything in space, everything you do in space is an experiment. Preparing for sleep and sleeping is also an experiment that keep changing from night to night, and then it's really interesting how the human body adapt and change to microgravity and just forget that gravity exists and just live in space.
Okay, thank you, Astro Ali. Mr. Ahmed Al-Khofeli, he's from the Saudi Space Agency, and he kind of managed the human space flight and the outreach aspects. So just 2 questions, Ahmed. What is the rationale for the experiments that were flown that you used? And then I'll come to the outreach aspects.
So let me just give you a bit of a background for the program. When we first started the planning for the program almost 2 years ago, we had to set or articulate a set of strategic objectives for all the work stream. That includes the astronaut corps, the training, the human capital, the infrastructure, and of course among them the scientific part, which is one of the most important parts of the program. So when you set a strategic objective, you have to know what kind of a baseline that you have. So we did a quick baseline, and what we found out is we have a very enthusiastic RDI community in Saudi Arabia, even when it comes to a new emerging sector like space. We had more than 18 satellites developed and launched, payloads, components, subcomponents. However, when it comes to microgravity research, which is what we're discussing now, let me say it wasn't as comparable in terms of the baseline that we had. So the first strategic objective to us was we had to build it. And therefore, the main goal or a key word was, I want to reach out to this RDI segment. So we had to understand what does it contain. So we looked at it from 2 verticals. One is the ecosystem. We have companies, we have small and medium enterprise, we have RDI institutes, we have hospitals, we have even school. And therefore, we had to cover all the aspects. So that was one thing that I had to reach out to them. In addition, I had to look at the scientific work stream, which is the themes that we have. We have physics, electromagnetics, we have human research, we have biomedicine, we have all kinds of science that could be involved within such a mission. So the best way was to do a quick open call where we reached out to entities that had some research, but they were always faced with an obstacle. As they say, the most challenging part about space is basically reaching to space. And therefore, we had to facilitate that part. That would include the integration capability with our partners, the execution of the experiments with our astronauts, and of course, as a research always it needs some kind of a subsidy to facilitate the work. So we've done some kind of an open call, and then we received quite substantial number of research. We had to assess based on these two work streams, but most importantly, the feasibility of achieving all the science that we received within a time frame, because we had a time for the launch of the mission that we had to consider as well. And here we are with 14 experiments in human research, biomedicine, cells, and a lot of educational research that we have done in physics and different kind of science.
Thanks for that, Ahmed. And the second aspect, which is also very critical, is the outreach and awareness. And so maybe you just talk us through how you engaged with the public, but also what was the impact of that engagement?
Okay. Outreach is really, to me, was an emotional, the emotional part of the project. I remember that for the outreach, we wanted to tackle students. We looked at different benchmarks, and it was a good point to start with the youngsters that will be the future scientists and could be sitting just in this venue, maybe 10 years from now, speaking about their experiment. And I remember with my colleagues going to the Ministry of Education, thinking that the success of that meeting is that I would get the Ministry of Education to commit to providing maybe hundreds of students. And with my basic geography knowledge, I thought that I want to reach out to different areas. So maybe 3 or 4 major cities, one in the north, the south, east, and west, and the center. And that would be a success, and call it an outreach where we reached out to different entities. The good news is that we went to the Ministry of Education, and I'm thinking that would be a challenging discussion. However, it turned out they're asking me, why only hundreds? Why only 4 cities? Why not thousands? Why not just everywhere? And we get out of this meeting with the Ministry of Education committing to 12,000 students, more than 1,000. There is even more to it. They even committed to, some people had to supervise the experiment with that kind of number of students. So they committed even to 1,000 teachers to supervise the experiments, also provide the location in 47 educational cities in Saudi Arabia, and even providing the venue, the feed that would log into the live feed that they have done it with the astronauts. So that was in a nutshell what we have done when it comes to the engagement with the Ministry of Education. And I think this is something that put us under a lot of pressure to deliver with all the support that we get from the Ministry of Education.
Thanks, Ahmed. Come back to Dr. Badr Shira. So I know it's quite early days, but has there been any impact on from the experiment itself in the profession? And maybe what's next, if there's a follow-up mission? Any plans for that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. So the impact is huge from these experiments. Number one is these experiments will show us the results or the effects of microgravity and radiation on the brain in a way that was not done before, which will constitute the scientific base on which future research is built, which is very important. So this is one scientific impact that's very important. The other one is that these experiments encourage the scientific community in Saudi Arabia to consider space as a research platform. I actually had many people reach out and want to conduct the research in space and say, how did you do it? You know, and what are the potential ways of doing research in space? And now we have a grant opportunity that is currently underway in the country, and many people are applying to conduct the research in space. So you can see that these experiments had a significant impact, reaching out to all the scientific community in Saudi Arabia. And I believe in the future, medical research is going to be highly needed, especially if we want to go to the moon, Mars, asteroids, and beyond. So conducting this research and being involved in such research from the beginning is very important. What's next for us is actually many of the devices we flew for the first time need to be flown again in longer duration missions because we've proven them to be successful. I cannot reveal too many results, but the results are very impressive, and these devices have significant potential for many future research in space. And also the samples we got when integrated with samples from different astronauts over different durations and different missions, that will give us a better understanding of the effects of microgravity on the human body. And so this is one of the future directions. What's next is sending these devices and collecting samples from future astronauts going to space in future missions over longer periods.
Okay, thank you for that. Dr. Kaur, so how will the results of your experiments essentially impact in your field? I mean, again, it's quite early, but it's obviously somehow advancing your existing knowledge. So what's next?
So I think what next is, in research is interesting. Research, if you don't get, when you get answers, one answer, you get also 10 more questions. It's always the case. So I think this will be driven by the results, what to do next. But definitely, I would think long flights is the way to go, the longer duration, because this is happening over 10 days, our experiments. But we really need to know more about the longer flights. So that's one thing. The other thing is when we will know for the first time about the mRNA half-life is actually as calculated in minutes. Between microgravity and Earth, it should give us more highlights about, in general, our response to microgravity and the International Space Station environment. It's very interesting to know that although I don't have the whole results, as I told you, it's going to take up towards the end of the day to have the whole picture about the results. But I would like to say that if the mRNA half-life increased in general, I think you can set up biomanufacturing facilities up there. You can increase recombinant DNA technology, you can increase RNA vaccine production. This is all hypothetical, but the data should drive us towards that one. If it is the other way around, if the mRNA half-life is reduced in general, especially inflammatory pro-inflammatory cytokines and other growth factors, you might be actually able to lessen some of the disease severity of certain chronic inflammatory conditions. That's also hypothetical. I was talking to Dr. Badr on a dinner about, so if we knew that there will be lessening of inflammatory response, what you would do? You're going to send patients up there to maybe improved. That's possibility. We will know about the response to therapy so that if they are improved or they are improving, you can send patients up there. But also possibility, although I'm not sure, I think some of the engineers can tell us. It depends if there's interaction with the audience. What about microgravity chambers on Earth? Okay, that's supposed to be invested in, because if you have health benefits, not people think that it might be all bad, from a health point of view, but who knows? You don't know if they respond better. If these are leukemic cells, and I can see their growth is actually lessened, even from the data itself. So this is all hypothetical, but it is realistic. It is realistic. We should go towards that and this only can be done with research and also in longer flights. So I hope I have answered this question. It's a tough question, but to answer.
Yeah. I know we talked about this offline as well, because you've used the microgravity environment as your lab, but there's discussions around setting up habitats in the moon and even in Mars. The big difference is there's no magnetic field, no radiation shielding. So the effects at a cellular level is going to be vastly different as well. So that research that you just started obviously needs to be expanded in that direction as well. Dr. Wijdan, did you find any unexpected outcomes maybe before, during, and after the mission itself? And,
yes, there were a few things that we went through during preparation of the experiment. Communicating with the Saudi Space Agency, with Axiom, with the Bioserve. I had to make sure that we were all aligned on the same page, understanding, because for a researcher, it's very difficult. It's one of the challenges that when you write an experimental proposal yourself, it's very difficult for someone else to perform it. So I had to make sure that I provided a detailed protocol for the astronaut to be trained on. So that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure of, that they receive a detailed steps about the experiment. During the mission, the outbound, we were like monitoring Ali and Rayana while she was doing the experiment. So, for example, 2 of the cell vials that we sent, they lost their cap. So we couldn't use them because we were afraid of contamination. So we had to compensate for that. Thank God that we had backup vials in the thing that we prepared, in the packages. Making sure that they have, that everything is backed and labeled clearly for each experiment, so they won't struggle during the experiment looking for things, for the vials or for the treatment. What else? Well, there were many. Of course, because it's a cell science, so the delay in the launch date forced us to stay there in the state for so long until they launched, because we had to prepare everything just before the mission. For the treatment and the cells, they have to be prepared exactly before the mission. We cannot prepare them before and store them to make sure that they are still viable and active. Now when we receive the data, we're going to see, we just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any technical issue that will interfere with our experiment, and so that the results that we are getting are due to biological changes, not due to anything technical. Yes, that's...
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wijdan. Astro Ali, I'm going to go actually off topic a little bit, and we discussed this. I was in Riyadh when you were actually being, Astro Rayana were being launched. It was like 12:30 a.m. in the morning, and there was a huge buzz. But the question I asked you, what was it like sitting on top of a Falcon 9 rocket and being shot into space?
Well, I was really excited. As you know, the certain thing about space missions change. So we are really, we were worried about if we are going to launch or not, because the weather that day was not favorable to our mission. But luckily, we ended up launching into space. So the excitement was very high inside of Dragon. We were cheering and shouting until Piggy asked us to come down. Hey guys, come down, please. I want to hear the communication. And I think it was clearly shown in the video how excited we were. Being inside the rocket, launching to space, if you were to tell me that I'm going to go to space like 2 years ago, I would say that's impossible. But being there and actually myself being a believer that there is not such a thing as impossible. But the time we live in Saudi Arabia, with the support we have from our government and our king and crown prince, and that they make sure that we have everything we need to succeed as a country and to fight for technological improvement. The Falcon 9 and the Dragon itself, it's amazing equipment or rockets that you can see. The booster comes back to land, and the Dragon itself continues to space. I remember a funny story my mom told me as she was watching the launch. She did not anticipate She did not expect the huge sound that the main booster gonna make when it comes back to landing. And at some point, the footage inside Dragon were not showing, and she was scared that maybe something bad has happened, and she was crying. And I think everybody was there also was emotional about the mission.
That's amazing. Ahmed, you were responsible for the mission. You sometimes describe it as mission impossible because this is your first experience in terms of training the astronauts or overseeing that. How did you manage that without any experience? Ahmed. No, Ahmed.
What was the question again?
You were responsible for the training of the astronauts without any prior experience. How did you manage that?
It's really a simple, I would call it phenomena. I've read it in multiple places. So I read a phrase about a couple of years ago where it says, we didn't do it because it was easy, because we thought it was easy. And that was exactly the case. When we started the project, I thought it was, we'll do the selection, we'll end up with the astronaut, and then we have just autopilot project. But I thought it was as easy as that, but then it was full of challenges that before doing it, we thought it was easy, and that was the motivation to solve it all along. And I want to emphasize here on all the support that we got from the international partners, governmental entities inside and outside the Saudi that really facilitated a lot of the work that we have done and also facilitate expediting the lessons learned that we got through the project. But the training of the astronaut and the astronaut that we picked were extremely professional that we didn't really have any struggle with it.
Thanks, Ahmed. Can I also invite the audience? You can either raise your hands, but there's also the opportunity to go on Slido. Are there any questions from the audience? Bilal. And I see another hand up there as well.
Dr. Bal, thank you for stay here and for share all this beautiful experience. Congratulations to the Space Agency and all team, because really the history is amazing. And as a Vice President for emerging countries and development communities, I want to know how you think that you can share these experiments, this knowledge that now you are discovering in all mission between other countries that now we don't have missions like that you are doing now. How do you think that we can cooperate with Latin America, Africa, and other regions and involve more the planet in that class of mission? Thank you.
Thanks for that, Pilar. Ahmed, can I pass that on to you?
That's a very good question. The stamp mark on space is that it's based on collaboration. The mission that we have done was based on lessons learned that we get from different entities, partner entities that we learned from on what is the most efficient point to do all work streams of the program without degrading the quality. That really helped us to do this mission in, I would say, a record time. Is before signing the contract to having 2 astronauts on board of the ISS was only 11 months. So that is less than 12 months, which is really challenging when it comes to the human spaceflight time frame. And that was really based on the lessons learned that we tried to avoid and enhance. And we're more than happy to even share the lessons learned that we have done, to even share it with others that they could do it as fast as needed, and again, without degrading the quality. We're very open for collaboration. Space is a collaborative atmosphere, and we are a part of it.
Okay, thank you. There's another hand up there.
Hello again.
Actually, I'm very honored today I can give question to you. I have two questions actually. What's your most interesting observation or experiment in space? It's first one, and second one. How I can say what are the emotional effects of being in space? Thank you so much.
Thank you for those questions. I would say my personal favorite experience in space was the second hour we reached the International Space Station, and as we were moving cargo from and payloads from Dragon to the ISS, we were about to fly over Saudi Arabia at night. And I remember Sultan, he came and dragged me out of Dragon, and he asked me to go to the cupola and just enjoy watching flying over our country and see it for the first time from space at night. And you can clearly recognize the cities, and we flew over my city. So it was a very, very nice moment for me and a good start for our mission. And to answer your second question, I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question? Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
What are emotional feelings in space? What are you feeling?
Okay, so usually in space, we stay focused doing work, and we stay engaged and involved in doing a scientific experiment and other things. So the time I would say we think about our emotions is when we call our family. And as a young father, I have a 2-year-old daughter. I really enjoy talking to my wife and daughter at night, and I tell them how much I miss them and how space is actually fun to be here, and I cannot wait for my daughter in the future to be an astronaut and visit.
Thank you. I see another hand up there.
Good morning. I'm Nir from Israel. I wanted to ask you, the distinguished forum, what do you think about civilian space missions? Will they be the most dominant in the future to come, more than what it used to be in the past years? Mainly focusing on collaborations of medicine and all kinds of other science in order to advance the humanity in space. Will this be the dominant exploration of space for the years to come?
I'm not sure I got the question, but I'm not sure. Ahmed, did you get it?
I think I'm getting a lot of echo in here, but my understanding is you're asking about the next mission and what ambition do we have when it comes to exploration and science? Was that the question?
The question is mainly all over the years, it usually was governments and space agencies, and now we see more and more missions that are dominant missions, that civilian missions or from companies, from new space companies more than governments. How do you see the future to come regarding space exploration and advancing in find how our body or how things are working in microgravity, while the emphasis is from the civilian or from the private companies and not from government?
I'm still struggling with I think with the echo, but...
it's a very bad echo from the side.
Yeah, but I think I will try to cover in a summary that I'm sure that it will cover what I captured from the question. So within the Saudi Space Agency, we have a strategy that is in the verge to be approved. So there will be a lot of announcements that are coming ahead. But let me try to announce what we can announce currently is we've started the first mission. And it's, as we announced exactly a year ago, it's a sustainable program that will have a diverse type of missions from a short stay to a long stay. In addition, we've already a signatory to the Artemis Accords, and therefore it's not a secret that our ambition to go to the moon and even beyond that. That would require a lot of work when it comes to enhancing the capabilities of microgravity research, science in general, the human capabilities. It goes even into education and other capabilities that are related to space. And also, activating the partnerships, not only within governmental agencies like space agencies around the globe, but in addition, there is one important sector that we even have to build, which is for the new space, that is related to entrepreneurship, small, medium, and enterprises, whether in Saudi Arabia or even internationally. And we've had the first cohort that we've launched, I think, 9 months ago, that included entrepreneurs from Saudi Arabia and also from Saudi, outside of Saudi Arabia, just to emphasize on the point that space is very collaborative, and therefore we want to, whoever could add to that exploration ambition, whether it is in a short, medium, or long term, we want to use that kind of a hand, as a space doesn't know any boundaries.
Thanks. Brilliant answer. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the floor? I see there's one hand here. Maybe while we're walking down, if you haven't visited the exhibition booth, I please encourage you to do that, because there's some of the experiments that were conducted in microgravity is actually exhibited on the stand as well. And you'll also get a little bit more information from that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interesting discussion. I just wanted to ask Dr. Badr, Dr. Khalid, and Dr. Wajdan, what's next for microgravity research or space science research in Saudi Arabia? Thank you.
Dr. Badr, what's next?
So what's next? As I said, these experiments lay the foundation for many future research to be done in Saudi Arabia. So what's next is going to be many research experiments flying from Saudi Arabia, sending samples for passive exposure to microgravity and then coming back. So this is one avenue that you will see a lot of in the future. Another thing is doing research on astronaut subjects, whether in very short duration low Earth orbit travels, or short duration ISS missions, or longer duration missions to the ISS. And then after that, Saudi Arabia is now part of the Artemis Accord, so you may in the future see some of the Saudi science flying on the Artemis mission for cislunar science. And all of this tells you that in the future you'll see a lot of scientific contributions coming from Saudi Arabia, now that this mission achieved its objectives and inspired the scientific community in Saudi Arabia.
Dr. Wajdan, the same question to you as well.
Yes. As a leading hospital, King Faisal was inspired by this mission and all the efforts from the Saudi Space Agency. So we are planning to open a section with Dr. Khalid Abu Khabar for space biomedicine research. So we can invite researchers or do a research plan to be done or carried out in microgravity, so we can understand more about the biology of the molecular biology of what's happening to the astronaut. How can we assist in improving their health in space, finding more therapeutic targets that can also benefit astronauts, also people on Earth. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? You want to add?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not going to answer the question for two reasons, because they already have answered both.
Yeah.
Also, the person who actually asked the question is a friend of mine, and this is biased. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the floor? There's a hand. There's two hands.
Just not too close.
Thank you so much for the excellent discussion so far. So it's impressive to see the quick turnaround time from Saudi coming out as an emerging space station to carving out a reputation of excellence and a place for itself in human spaceflight. So if you had to name, yes, absolutely, that deserves applause. Congratulations. And I know we can't quite reveal the surprise of the Saudi strategy going forward. However, if you were to name 3 areas of excellence that you would like to carve a name out for yourself, it sounds like medicine, medical research is one of them. Can you name 3 areas of excellence that 10 years from now you'd like to have Saudi associated with in human spaceflight?
Ahmad, did you get that?
It's really my location, so if you get the question, I might get it.
I thought you asked about 3 areas of excellence that you wanted to touch on. maybe name 3 areas of excellence from the Saudi perspective.
What is it?
Related to this mission.
Did
I get it right?
I could come closer, but maybe it's within my location.
3 areas of excellence for Saudi in human spaceflight over the coming years.
Did you get it?
There's a really, really bad echo. You want to come up first? Yeah.
So now I get the question. So the question was, what are the 3 areas of excellence when it comes to the Saudi Space Commission, now that the Saudi Space Agency for the next a few years? If you noticed within the speech that we've had and also the answers of my colleague, there is an inspiration and there is an ambition. This is why our new logo, if you just look at it, it's infinity. And so areas of excellence, it couldn't be just only 3. We have much more. We're trying to be a main player within just the next 10 years when it comes to space. That would goes into downstream, upstream as becoming an integral part of our life. The human space flight is only supportive to all of that. Science is one thing. The human space flight when it comes to the astronaut corps that we're also trying to build. And also, one of the areas that I think we've done an impressive job within the time frame is the efficiency when it comes to the selection of the astronaut. There are a lot of things that you could do that would take a few years. However, we could have done it in a few months without even degrading the quality. The time frame that we've had, I think, urges to come to that area of excellence. So microgravity research is one of things. The astronaut selection is another thing. And also, we're also trying to be a major facilitator with the integration capability that we've built within this mission.
Okay, I think there was one more question from this side.
All right, that's okay. Now I go. All right, hello everybody, and congratulations to you and the people behind you that make possible successful experiments. And I'd like to address a question to the present astronaut here. So may you share one idea or one kind of experiment that you bring from up there to the scientists down on Earth? It was clear?
Did you get the question?
Can you repeat again
The
one idea?
The echo is problematic. We cannot hear really. So if you don't mind, yeah.
I will try to make it clear. Yeah. So may you share an idea or a kind of experiment that you bring from up there to your colleagues on Earth to make more research on it?
I can answer it, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, so basically, here's a very interesting question, actually. He said, can you bring an idea from the experiments that were conducted at the International Space Station to Earth? Did I say it right? Yeah, I think.
Approximately, so if you got the feeling that one idea or what kind of research could be...
Yes, I get it. Yes, yeah. I think I give an example when I was talking. If you see, for example, response to therapy in cancer is improved up there. Of course, you have to use a disease model or mice, for example, having tumor, we call it tumor-bearing mice, okay? If you see a reduction in a very specific type of cancer, not every cancer, because that's going to be really exaggerating, but I do believe that there might be some kind of leukemic type of disease, leukemia, a specific type of leukemia, because remember they are under microgravity. They might be listened, they might be respond better to therapy. For example, that's one possibility. So you go to Earth and you can apply this concept. Can we improve the response or chemotherapy of cancer patients towards this goal? And you can do that again by either having, as you said, microgravity chambers, if it can be engineered, or maybe sending them up there. So that's possibly a realistic idea, and it's going to be only happening with experiments. The other one is, for example, manufacturing of RNA vaccines. Are they going to be improved up there? How the RNA half-life is behaving? This can give more insights about what to do. I think there are so many examples that can happen, in my opinion.
Also in microgravity, studying the protein structure, protein crystallization, where you can identify therapeutic target will also help here on Earth, because you will study the protein structure, so you will know how to make a target therapy for this kind of protein, if it's responsible for any kind of disease like cancer, cardiovascular, or any other diseases.
Thanks, Dr. Khabar and Dr. Wichdan. We've got 16 seconds left. So I just want to close out. Firstly, thank you for coming through and for your interest in this particular mission. This was a very historic mission in many different respects for the Saudi Space Agency, and it's one of many that's still to come. Secondly, I also want to thank my panelists in terms of sharing the experiments that you've done, the experiences, the emotions, and also the outreach as well. So thank you. So I'd like to close off the session. Thank you.